being a mom, how do you balance all of that?
I always say that balance is bullshit. I think I spent a long time trying to achieve some kind of balance, but no, it doesn't exist. You just deal with what needs to be dealt with. That's the truth. There's no such thing as balance. It's okay, right? Like we do the best we can with what we have, and I've learned to be a little bit easier with myself.
Welcome to Tea Talks, the podcast where we break down the journeys of game changers, innovators, and leaders transforming industries and communities alike. It's more than just success stories. We dive deep into the experiences, challenges, and triumphs that define their paths. At Tea Talks, we dive into the stories of the leaders changing our world. I'm your host, TJ Walia. Today, our guest is an individual who is a 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence recipient. An occupational therapist turned entrepreneur, she has ventured out on her own to solve a problem for the Sikh community and invented a bold helmet to protect Sikh boys who cannot wear conventional helmets. Tina Singh. Tina, welcome to Tea Talks.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, Tina. Tina, before we begin, I've got a lot of questions I want to talk to you about and on your journey. But before we begin, I want to share, how our paths really crossed. I saw what you were doing last year. One of your posts came across my social media channels, and I'd reached out just to, congratulate you on what you were doing and all. And funny enough, we were at the Diljit concert together and didn't recognize one another. So I think you were right next to us, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, literally right next to you, right next to you. But it was funny because I saw you and I'm like, this guy looks really familiar. And it wasn't until I went onto LinkedIn like the following Monday where I was like, oh, this is who it was. But I knew that I knew you when I saw you.
That's funny. And then I see your message come through and I'm like, where was she? And I'm trying to go through my videos. I'm like, was she in here anywhere or not? And then obviously, here we are today. So listen, Tina, again, thank you for being here. I wanted to really touch on what you're doing. You're diving into something that no one has tapped into before. And it was a challenge that I had growing up, for sure. But at my age, when we were growing up, no one cared about helmets as much as we do today.
It was an interesting journey to start on for sure. And part of the struggle when we started, and we'll get into the story, but like part of the struggle when we started is even knowing if this was a problem for anyone else. Like inside, I felt like I knew it was, but I mean, sometimes we live in a bubble and we don't really know what other people are thinking. So it's really interesting to hear you say that, yeah, you weren't even worried as much about helmets. The more we know.
Yeah, and you know what? And one of the reasons I don't get a motorcycle now is because of that. It's because I know that there's that safety element of it. I would love to ride a motorcycle, but I don't because there's that aspect of it. And I know there's a lot of folks from our community who say we don't need the helmet. We've got the turban, but there are challenges around the level of protection we have from the turban versus the helmet itself. But the story of how Bold Helmets was born, Tina, love to hear it.
Yeah, so honestly, Bold Helmets was born out of my own real life need. I am the mom of three boys. They're now 12, about to be 11, and 9. And so, yes, they keep me very busy. My house is very busy. But when they were younger and first learning how to ride their bikes, like my oldest son, he's one of those kids who was up on his bike maybe at like 3 years old, like without training wheels. Like he was just really quick with that kind of stuff. And so I'm an occupational therapist and I worked in head injury for many years. And so I was adamant that you do what you want to do, take those risks. I want to support you. However, you have to wear all your safety gear. And so when he was like 2 years old, getting a helmet on, yeah, we can squish it on. But after about the age of 3 or 4, 5, like you couldn't get it on anymore because their top knot or their juda, their hair is too long, the bun is too big, and so it doesn't fit properly. And so we struggled with that. And so I would be the parent pushing for, okay, let's just tie his hair to the back while he's riding his bike. And it worked for a while, but kids get to a certain age where they pick up and they want to take off with their friends. They just want to ride their bikes. I'm busy working. I'm busy taking care of 2 other kids. I can't always be like switching the way his hair is tied. And he hated it because he wasn't used to it, right? My husband is a Sardar as well. And he talks about when he was growing up, he's like, oh, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine because he just didn't have that same experience. And I think when you have your own kids, it's different because you do whatever you can to protect them at all costs, right? You take those risks,
Absolutely.
but we want to protect them.
Absolutely. And I mean, when it comes to us, we're like, oh, we'll wing it and we'll see what happens. And, it's not too much. But to your point, when it's for someone else, especially those that are dear and close to us, we want to make sure we're protected them. And so how did you turn that idea into a business? Like what was that journey? What was that aspect of it?
So that journey took many years. And so I feel like sometimes when you hear about the story, it feels like it happened right away. It really didn't. I had this idea from when my oldest son was probably about, I'm going to say 3 years old. He's 12 now. So it wasn't until like, I don't know, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago that I actually decided to like go on the journey to do this work. And part of that was my older boys started to play hockey. And as much as they learned to ride their bikes and we got through without any major injuries, and we were still squishing like regular helmets on, it was at that point where they started playing hockey that I realized like this problem is not going to get any easier. In fact, it's going to get much worse. And so that was when I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. And so our idea about how this helmet should look was pretty simple. Like we thought it should just follow the look of a patka. Like all we need is this extra little dome area of space to make the helmet sit properly on the forehead for it to be able to do its job, right? And so once we made that decision, then we had to find the design engineer to draw it out and then find a manufacturer, make sure it was going to pass safety testing. Like we had back and forth, iterations of the product that we had to go through to make sure it was going to work for the standards that we needed here in Canada, the US, Europe, and all of that. So it took a long time. It took a couple of years to get to that point. But even starting took a couple of years because truthfully, I didn't know how to start. I've run businesses before, but I've never designed a product before. And so not even knowing where or how to start was probably my biggest challenge.
And how did you overcome that? What were some of the things that you did to figure out who do you go to? Because I know there's a lot of folks that are sitting on the sidelines thinking, I don't know how to start. I don't know what the first thing is I have to do. What was that like?
So I would say, in hindsight, I would say try to find a mentor who works in that space. I didn't have that at that time, nor did I look very hard for it at that time because, again, I had no idea where to start or where to go. And so this was basically conversations with my husband and I. And I think what really gave me that push to actually find and hire that design engineer was this conversation with my husband where I was saying to him, like, this is like such a problem still, whatever, we should have just gone ahead and created this helmet, whatever. And he was like, well, why didn't you? And I was furious. I'm like, I'm here taking care of 3 kids, raising them. When did you want me to go and design and build this helmet? I was so mad. But then it made me go and do it. So I then turned around and I found that right firm, and it took a couple of firms. Believe it or not, design firms can turn you away. Like they can say no to your money and say, I don't think this is going to work out. And actually one design firm did say that to me. They said,
Wow.
we don't think you're ever going to get to the end of the iteration process, and then basically you'll run out of money because it's a self-funded project. And
Of
so
course.
I found the right firm that I felt like was willing to take a chance on what we were building and also felt like we could build it. And so once I did that and signed my name on that dotted line and took that step, I knew I was either in it till we had a finished product or I ran out of money. Like that was,
Wow.
it was as simple as that. I'm like, either I make it or I don't. But now that I've signed this big amount of money onto this project, like we're going to go as far as we can.
Wow. And that's a big commitment to make at that point, right? It's like in both cases, like you're in it for the long haul. However, you touched on hockey, right? So talk to me about what the product's available for, right? Is it just bicycle helmets? Is there variations of it? Are there different styles? Help me understand that, please.
Yeah, so right now, our first year in 2023, we launched a helmet that was specifically for cycling, inline skating, skateboarding, and like manual scooters. And we had it in a size small. In 2024, we released a size medium of that product. We did have some demand from some kids who were a little bit older, and everyone's head is a little bit different size, so we wanted to make sure we had options in sizing. Currently, that is our product offering, the small and the medium of this product. However, we are deep in R&D for a hockey version of our product, which we hope is going to be to market next year. So for the next hockey season for 2025. So we're really excited about that. We made some changes to the work that we did. We've definitely upgraded and elevated the design and the work that we're doing. And so we're really excited about that coming forward. We think, as a Canadian brand, as a Canadian company, as Canadian parents, we want to make sure we're offering these hockey helmets to the kids who need them. And if you think about it, hockey helmets are not just for those actually playing hockey. Even learn to skate programs require hockey helmets. And I know a lot of parents in the first 2 seasons did try to use our helmet for hockey, but then there are certain regulations you have to follow for a helmet to be suitable for hockey. It's the type of impact that they can take. And so it's not suitable for hockey. So we're excited to have a new version coming to market, hopefully very soon.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that. And you know, and when I look at it, I mean, it's a big challenge. We talk about inclusivity as a society, right?
Yeah.
And when we look at this scenario, there are scenarios where Sikh boys cannot play, to your point, or cannot learn skating because a helmet doesn't fit, right?
Yeah.
They cannot play hockey. They cannot do a lot of activities that every one of their friends does.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to go skating back when I was a kid, there was no helmet. We didn't wear a helmet. My friends did. I didn't because there was none that suited or fit me at the time. And I know I've had head injuries based on that. I've fallen over. Luckily, nothing severe enough, more than a minor concussion, I would say. But those are challenges that we face. And I'm so glad to hear that you're solving this problem for the next generation to come. You talked about mentorship, and that's something I really talk about on my podcast. And it's usually in corporate careers and finding the right mentor and finding the right sponsors, etc. Talk to me about what that mentorship needs to look like in an entrepreneurship world, because there's a lot of facets that you have to cover. It's not just one little thing here and there. In corporate, it's different because you've got a mentor that says, hey, you've done that role. I see what you're doing. Teach me a few things and I'll come, follow your journey. It's not the same case in entrepreneurship. You've got sales, marketing, you've got, R&D. You've got a number of things. Help me understand that a bit.
Yeah, so finding a mentor, and I can speak to it now, I've now had access to tons of wonderful mentors. In the beginning, I would say, again, I didn't know where to look or how to get that mentorship. And just based on my experience with even the design firms that I dealt with initially, or the first couple of ones that I reached out to, I feel like not everyone is willing to talk to you. So that's one thing. So it becomes a little bit challenging. But I think once you have a little bit of time in the space and you're able to form some connections, finding mentors is incredibly valuable for your journey. And so in my case now, I feel like I've had access to a lot of accelerators, a lot of programs that are built around women entrepreneurs, female-led businesses, all of that. And so I've had access to a lot of that. That's led me to find mentors who can really help me in the space. But to your point, there's so many aspects to what you're doing in a business, the sales, the marketing, product design, engineering, like any of those things. I'm not an engineer. My husband's an engineer, but I'm the OT. Like I deal with the functionality part of it, right? So finding people who can help you understand customer product need is actually a really big one, right? So that's a whole different category. So I think when it comes to finding a mentor, it's key to not look for one person to be able to do everything. Not everyone can do everything, right? Just like someone can't run a business successfully all on their own, right? You need to find people who are specialized in that space. And so like a piece of advice I would give someone who's looking for a mentor is to go to LinkedIn, find someone who's doing something that is like what you're doing and ask them for their time. My experience on LinkedIn has been that if you reach out to people, people are really happy to lend you 30 minutes, to talk to you, to connect you with resources. And that's been extremely helpful for me. And it's something I try to do when anyone reaches out to me, like as much as I can, to connect them with the people who would be best suited to help them with whatever they're working on in their business journey.
Well, no, absolutely. LinkedIn's great. I mean, that's how you and I got connected,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't on Insta or any other platforms, but it was definitely LinkedIn. And I've had a lot of conversations with individuals asking me and say, hey, can you provide me some mentorship? Can you guide me on this? Or my career at Microsoft, I'm trying to do X. Can you help me through that? And even though sometimes you can't get into a full relationship as a mentor, you can still provide some tips or guidance or direct someone in the right way. Around mentorship, something a little different that I want to touch into is the support system from those around you. When you're starting a unique concept, it's not like you're opening up a franchise business and you're just saying, "Hey, I'm going to, open up this restaurant or this clothing business, if you will." You're actually going in to create and build something that never existed before. So there's a lot of doubt, You talked about some of the firms that would say this is not going to pan out, let alone those around you. What did that look like, Tina, for you, and I guess just the concept of bold helmets?
To be honest, I think people around me were really supportive. Like my, immediate family and everyone when I talked about the idea, they were, immediately supportive of, yes, you should find a solution to this. I think everyone in my close circle is very supportive of that. Does everyone around me really understand me diving headfirst and making this my entire existence? Probably not, right? And again, creating a product that didn't exist before, there's always questions around, well, how big is this market? What are you going to do with this? What more are you going to bring? It costs for a product like ours, it costs like several $100,000 to bring one product to market. So it's like, how long are you going to keep doing this? How much are you going to be able to do? Maybe you should focus on selling this business and doing something else, right? So I do get a lot of that sometimes, not a lot. I do get some of that, or I hear some of that. But I think, you got to remember why you started, right? I started for my own kids, and let me tell you, just on a side note, like my kids are at the age, the oldest is 12, where just like any other 12-year-old, I have to remind him day in and day out to wear his helmet when he goes out and rides his bike. And I've had stopped him and said, like, your mom has devoted her life to making helmets. How is it going to look if you ride down the street with no helmet in our neighborhood where everyone knows us, right? But they're just at that age. So that to share that I still face the struggle of helmet compliance with one particular kid, because he's getting to that teenage years where they think they're indestructible. But like, yeah, we hear some of that. Like, I try to remember the reason why I started, and I try to recognize that not everyone understands your journey, and that's okay because they have not been on your journey, right? Not everyone sees potential in what you're doing either, and that's because of their lived experiences, right? And so that's why when you talk about mentorship, it's so important, because there's mentors who I just met in the last, I'm gonna say 12 months, and they've really helped me see all the opportunity. They've really helped me see all the options that I have around me to expand and scale my business. And so it's a niche product. Sometimes what you're doing is niche. Sometimes you don't know anyone who's in the same space as you or in the business world. And so they don't always see what you can see, right? And so you have to take some of those comments with a grain of salt, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the key things you hit on is don't forget why you started, right? Like, I think that's what people have to really, really anchor in on, because otherwise you're going to be constantly going from one idea to another, to another, to another, and you're never going to finish anything. But if you can see this one through, or that one concept or idea through, then you're onto something. And it also takes a lot of resilience to get into the business. So you already have a lot of that built into you getting into this type of environment. So some of those skills are already there. You just have to, level them up and say, you know what, I'm good. Thank you for the advice. I'll pass for now. But with all of that and all the things that are going on, and you talked about, the compliance of don't forget to wear your helmet, don't do this, being a mom, how do you balance all of that? Because this is not a typical 9 to 5 job. This is an always on business, essentially. Concepts, ideas, thoughts. I'm in the entrepreneurship space now as well. Sometimes you'll get an idea at 2 o'clock and you're writing this thing down. It's always on. Talk to me about that. And 3 kids, it's not, I'm sure it's not a light load for you as well, packing lunches and breakfast and everything else. So talk to me about
Everything
what that
else.
looks like.
Yeah, I have 3 kids and a dog. And yeah, it's always on, like you said. Sometimes I get ideas in the middle of the night. Actually, I will say that my husband and I have been really good at like trying to improve our sleep routine. And so we try not to do any screens, but it's true. Sometimes I wake up and I have an idea or a thought will come to me and I really want to write it down right away so I don't forget it. I think, I don't, am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Go for
On
it.
your no, I always say that balance is bullshit. Like that's the truth. There's no such thing as balance. There's always wobbly plates, right? I call them wobbly plates. Like there's certain things that need more attention at some times than other times. Like the beginning of the school year, I'm going to get 600 forms to my house that I have to fill out for all my kids and connect with all the teachers. And so I know that first week of school, I don't book any major meetings because I know I have to accommodate for that, right? When it's during the school week or like if a couple days a week, I try to make sure that I'm not more than 30 minutes away from my house. Like I shared with you earlier, anytime I go more than 30 minutes away from my house, someone calls from the school. And I'll give you an example. Just this week, actually, I had one kid whose wire came out of the braces. I had to pick him up at 12 o'clock to go take him to a dentist appointment to get it fixed because it was bothering him. And that was the only time I could get. So I stopped my work day, pick him up, take him, come back home. I get him from the bus and a bracket broke during one of the recesses. He got hit by a basketball or something. Then I
Oh
had to
my.
rush him back to the dentist to get it. And and that was just one of them. And then the kids have their after school activities. And so I used to get really frustrated with this kind of experience of feeling like I just can't get my work done. And I think really in the last 6 months or so, I've really changed my tune with that a little bit. Like I recognize how fortunate I am to be able to do that. And so I tell my kids, I'm like, there's a reason why I feel like one parent should always be close to home. Maybe not working from home, but close enough to home that in situations like this, they can be available. Of course, my kids don't understand, but it was my way of telling them that you need to appreciate me because I'm here and I'm able to do these things for you, right? But the balance is just, it's not there and it never is. And I think I spent a long time trying to achieve some kind of balance, but yeah, no, it doesn't exist. You just deal with what needs to be dealt with at the time. It means it's a big workload, but I mean, everyone has a big workload. It's okay, right? Like we do the best we can with what we have. And I've learned to be a little bit easier with myself too. Like there doesn't have to be a fresh meal every day. We can have leftovers. It's fine. Like, someone else can cook the dinner. It's fine. Like if my husband's home, he'll make dinner, right? So I don't worry about too much of those expectations as much as I used to. And I think that comes with age too.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the key elements out of that is acceptance, right? Like this is a journey that we're going to go on, and I have this conversation with my wife all the time. Like, there's the plates never end. Like the dishwasher's always on, and it's just never ending, and you're finding one dish after another that still needs to be washed. So it's that journey, and then let's not include laundry in there as well, and all of that goes in, especially with three kids. I've got three kids at home as well, no dog at this point, but so I know exactly what your household looks like, but acceptance, I find, is the key. Once you accept that these are the roles and responsibilities that you just have to take on, you become a happier person. I used to tell my wife this all the time when we first got married. Her stress levels will be higher than mine. And I said, listen, we have the same kids, we have the same house, we have the same everything. Why is it your stress level is higher than mine? Right? It's because I've accepted that this is the journey and the path we're on. I don't debate, argue, try to change any of that. That stays as is, but I focus on the things that I can change. So I hear you, right? It's we talk about getting wiser and older as well, but that's, I think, a part of that journey, and having that. And I'm sure you're thinking now that your kids don't appreciate any of that. They will later on.
One day.
One day. And so for individuals who are, again, on the sidelines, what's your one piece of advice if they've got something that they really believe in, just don't know how to get started?
Honestly, it sometimes is take a leap of faith. I didn't know if it was going to work out. I don't think any of us know for sure what's going to happen. No, none of us know for sure what's going to happen. And so if you have an idea, I say find a mentor, find someone who works in a similar space, talk to a trusted friend, see what someone else thinks about it, right? About what you're doing. If you have an idea and you think you want to bring it to life, do it. And, I wish I had started when my oldest son was 3. I don't know where I would have been now, but that's not the journey I'm on. My journey led me to be starting later on when my kids were a bit older. Like I became like an entrepreneur in the product space at 40, right? Like it was a really different experience than what I would have had before. And so I think you have to take a leap of faith. And if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. That's the thing. Like, even when it comes to, Bold helmets, when we think about it, like, yeah, any big brand could have made it, but they didn't because it's a niche product for a niche market. And you almost have to be part of that group to be able to do it right, if that makes sense, right? Like
Yeah,
or
no,
you have to have
absolutely.
consultants from that group to do it right. And so no one else took it on. And so if I didn't do it, maybe, it never would have happened. I don't know. Right? So think about what you want to build, what it is you want to do. Maybe you're the one to do it. I think all of us
Yeah.
wait for someone else to do something. Those are the people who are bystanders, right? We're waiting for everyone else to do something when we could do it ourselves.
Absolutely. And I've got two startups going right now, and in one of them it was the same thing. I waited for at least 4 years thinking, well, I don't need to solve this. Someone else will figure this out. and then rolled up my sleeves one day and said, you know what, I'm gonna go right after this thing. But you did touch on speak to a trusted friend or speak to someone. Depending on where you are in your career journey, like when I was planning on leaving Microsoft, everyone said, you're out of your mind. Like, what are you doing? You spent so many years there, amazing career. What are you trying to do? And this is like, we had this conversation offline the other day where I was telling you that support system wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And now a year and a half later, everyone looks at it and says, wow, like you've really, pulled through. And to do that for a year and a half is not, a easy stretch by any means, as you know, as an entrepreneur. But going through that, sometimes you have to believe in yourself more than what others believe. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to believe in yourself more than other people sometimes. That's very, very true. And, I think my experience was a little bit different because I've been self-employed my entire adult life. And so even as an OT, I kind of ran my own practice, whatever. So there's never a time where I can't go back and do that. Right. That's another thing where I feel like if you're leaving a corporate job, there's a lot of questions about like, why are you doing this? Right. And so I did get some of that, but I think, yeah, you're right. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be willing to take that leap of faith, even if you're not sure. Because, like I said, like when I signed on that dotted line with that design engineer, I knew that this is it. I'm going as far as I can go before I go broke. That's it. Like, that's it. Like I knew. So it's like, you have to take that leap of faith and be like, I'm committed to doing this. And I don't know. It doesn't, and at this point, I can tell you that even though I'm still very early in the Bold Helmets journey, but
Sure.
like I can say that doesn't matter what happens from here on out, I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done so far. And I think that's a really blessed place to be, to say, it doesn't matter if I expand further than this, it doesn't matter what happens with this business. I'm extremely proud with the lasting work that's been created. And so I think that's part of it. Like, you can't look at 20 years down the line. You can say, I want to get to this piece, right? Small, achievable goals, and believe in yourself. And once you start to actually do the work, you'll realize how much you actually can do, even if other people didn't believe you could.
Absolutely. And I think there's two things that come out of that. One is you'll very quickly know if this is something you want to do.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy all the day-to-day workload and the problem solving that you're doing, or it's like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me and I'm going to go back into doing something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're about learning. We're about that journey of experiences. Like I said, like I spent almost 15 years at Microsoft, and everyone thought that was going to be my journey. But for me, I wanted to expand my learning, and I pivoted to a different path. So it's about what we feel satisfies our needs. Who knows, maybe I do go back to Microsoft one day or another corporation, or I continue down this path. I'm already partnering with them on many aspects, right? Who knows where that conversation goes. But as it is now, this is something I'm absolutely enjoying, and that's how we have to look at it as. And even for people that are doing any jobs or roles or functions, those functions are great until you enjoy them. Once you're stressed out and you hate your existence because of it,
Yep.
get out and try something different.
That's exactly it. And so, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people who talk about failing quickly, and I wouldn't call this failing, but like, try the journey. Like, you want to try something you're not sure. There's nothing wrong with trying it and then going away from it. Like, going back to what you were doing before. Like you said, you might realize that it's not for you. And I think part of this in our community, and when I say like business community, our circle of friends, our families, I think part of this is seen as failure, and it shouldn't be. So if someone says, I'm going to go out and try this thing, and then, a couple months later, a year later, they go back to what they're doing before, people say, oh, first they were doing that, but now they just gave up. And like, it's just part of their journey, right? And so this
Absolutely.
idea of like, you feeling like you can't go back or you can't tell people, or there's some shame associated with that, is something we really need to get rid of. I think things are definitely getting better, and people are acknowledging that people need to be on their own journeys and try different things. But I think some of that shame or that fear of shame actually holds people back from wanting to try something new, and that they might just end up where they were when they started. But you're never where you
Absolutely.
started, right?
No,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing. There's that saying that you never put your foot twice in the same river, right? It's you're going to grow, you're going to progress, you're going to learn, and those learnings are going to come back in many different facets, and you're going to apply them to whatever else you do. I'm now taking on individuals from Microsoft and Intel and other corporations for one-on-one coaching on branding, which I never thought was I'm a tech guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what you're doing on social media on LinkedIn is phenomenal. Can you coach us? And I'm like, I don't know what that looks like, but that now becomes an arm or an extension to the business that I'm in. And these are things that I never started with. And so if I never adventured out, I would have never known,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes these things come full circle, right? Like everything you do kind of lends itself into where you end up. And so I say that with myself a lot. Like I started in OT, and OTs work very heavily in product design. I never worked in product design, but I worked in head injury, and so I know a lot about like, head injury and head injury prevention and all of that kind of stuff. And then when it came time to design a helmet, it felt like a no-brainer. But then I also spent like 8 years on social media, and so it became easy for me to do PR and media. And then here we are now running a business. You know what I mean? Like everything kind of ties together and feels like it fits together. So it doesn't matter how long you leave your space or try something new. Like you said, that learning follows you. You grow and you change, and you use that for your future work
Absolutely.
and goals.
Absolutely. Unless you get a head injury, then that learning is gone, right?
No,
So
no, no. We do rehab. We we
we do
we
rehab.
get you back. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Tina, before we go into our exciting rapid fire question, one question for you, which is for our audience, whoever is looking to get one of these helmets, what countries is it available in? What stores? Is it online? What does that all look like?
Okay, so you can get Bold helmets at Canadian Tire locations, select Canadian Tire locations. So all of Brampton, Surrey, BC, we have a location in Calgary and in Edmonton. You can also order anytime online at www.boldhelmets.com. We also have a few other select partners, but if you go to our website, you can see all the locations where you can buy in person, and you can also just order direct, and we ship across Canada, US, UK, India, now Australia is one of our new ones, all across the European Union. So tons of countries we ship to.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Tina, for that. And now for our rapid fire segment. Rules are very simple. I ask a question, respond with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Ready? All right. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Yeah. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Yeah. Favorite color?
Black.
Does that also apply for the helmets? I'm curious now.
I don't know. I feel like it's actually pink. I think I just said black. Oh, yeah, black. I don't know. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Favorite day of the week?
Monday. I can't believe I just said that. Okay.
I think you're probably the only person who's ever said that.
Yeah.
I need to understand why. Why Mondays?
I feel like Monday is like a fresh start. Like usually the weekend is a bit chaotic with kids, and Monday's kind of back to a bit of a routine, and I definitely like routine. So I
Yeah.
can't believe I said that. I actually wanted to say Friday, but I said Monday, so we're gonna go with it.
You should have a conversation with my brother-in-law about Mondays. He hates Mondays. One thing you cannot live without.
Coffee.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I think I know the answer to the next one, but I'll do it anyways. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. But I had a cat growing up,
Oh,
so
you did?
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And then you switched.
I switched.
Didn't like the cat?
Loved the cat, but it was time for me to get a dog. I always wanted one. My parents never let me have one, so then I wanted one when I grew up.
There you go. There you go. So keep in mind, you might be restricting your kids from things as well. So just let them have what they want.
Yes.
Most used emoji.
The laughing emoji with the tears.
Okay. And my last question, Tina, is if animals could talk, which would you want to have a conversation with outside of your dog?
Outside of my dog?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a bird of some sort? I don't know, maybe a bird? I'd like to know what they've seen and where they've been. Like, they migrate and they go all over. I guess that's a very interesting question. I'm going to say
There you go.
bird, a bird.
A bird it is. We'll lock that in. Awesome, Tina. Thank you very much, Tina. It was a fun conversation. Really appreciate you being here, my friend.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Tina, thank you very much for sharing your insights and your story with us today. It's been a true pleasure. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to Tea Talks for more conversations with the leaders who are shaping our world. Until next time, keep on inspiring.